Shabbat Shalom from Temple Concord. This week our Torah portion is sort of a greatest hits. We have the Ten Commandments and we have the Shema and V'ahavta. And the Shema and V'ahavta jump at me anew this year. Watching what's gone on in Israel over the last weeks and the vitriol and hatred that has inspired in Europe and in other places has got me wondering, what is it that we can do to help deal with these problems? It's one thing to be anti-Zionist or to be anti-Israel, and while I disagree with those positions pretty strongly, I consider myself a pretty strong Zionist, it's another thing altogether to be anti-Semitic. And too often over the last weeks, we've seen protests in France and Belgium and all over, where the lines have been not against Israel, but against Jews. And the protests have taken place not in front of government buildings, but in front of synagogues. And so what do we do with such hatred? How do we respond to it? How do we deal with hatred that has no reason, no basis in fact, that's just hatred for hatred's sake? I think the answer comes in V'ahavta, love. V'ahavta begins with, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart. It's a radical new kind of love that's proposed in that prayer and those words of Torah. And perhaps that's what our world needs now. We need a new radical kind of love, of loving our neighbors even when they hate us, and responding to every act of vitriol with love. Now, it doesn't mean we can't defend ourselves, or that Israel shouldn't be defending herself. On the contrary, we both need defense. But it does mean that when we encounter the other, we need to train ourselves so that our first reaction, our first instinct, is love. That's hard. It's a real challenge. But it's what I do when I reach out to my Christian and Muslim friends, and it's what I believe we can all do and make our world a better place in so doing. If we look to the other and say, yes, we may have disagreements, but we can share a love for God, a love for the world, a love for each other, then perhaps we move beyond the vitriol, the hate, the disgusting language and action we've all witnessed over these last weeks. And so when we read verses this Shabbat and when we pray the Shema and V'ahavta each day, let those words remind us that it is a new radical kind of love that God calls us to. It is a kind of love for ourselves and for others that should inspire us to reach out and see in the other not an enemy, not someone to hate or fear, but rather someone to befriend and get to know, to savor the similarities and also to cherish the differences, but above all, to love. Shabbat services this Friday evening will take place at Temple Adith. We'll be joined together with Adith and with Congregation Beth Shalom. Services will be at 6 o'clock at Adith outside. We're looking forward to this sort of community celebration of Shabbat. Next week, our services will take place at 6 o'clock p.m. At the JCC outside by the pool. We'll have a barbecue and services and be able to take a swim as well. Saturday mornings, both weeks, we have our Torah study at 10, preceded by text study at 9. And followed, of course, by Shabbat morning services at 11. For now, I wish you a Shabbat filled with love. Love of oneself, yes, but even more, love of the other. Whether we know the other or not, whether the other preaches love back for us or something far worse. If we can find it in ourselves to return to those words of love found in the Torah, then we have a chance at healing our world. Shabbat Shalom. Look forward to seeing you at the temple.